Well, welcome everyone to our special board-to-board interview series featuring CY Chen. He is the co-founder of Benefits Tomorrow, EVP of World Finance Group, and former VP of Technology and Operations for IDT. My name is David Jang, Chairman of Monte Jade West, and I'm glad to be your host today. Monte Jade was founded in 1989 by immigrants from Asia. They were bonded together to support one another because they were under-networked and under-resourced. Through this community, billions of dollars of enterprise value was created and hundreds of companies were formed. Even to this day, Monte Jade is focused on building community. Today, we build community under three main pillars. The first pillar are our interview series, such as this, focused on celebrating notable community leaders through understanding their personal journey of how they overcame some of their many challenges that they faced. The focus on journey helps us better connect and better understand some great leaders and connect them to the next generation. Our second pillar, Our second pillar is focused on technology forums. Within these forums, we focus on building ideas and presenting ideas to our community about new things that they should be understanding. This allows us to discover new opportunities for either investment or careers. And recently we've had talks on venture investing, AI, biosciences, and we're going to be having one coming up shortly on the communication sector. Lastly, our final pillar, but most important pillar, is our mentorship program. This is a 100% volunteer-run program focused on helping build the skill sets needed of future leaders. Eastern Asians are underrepresented in the leadership of many Bay Area technology companies. Today, Asians continue to lag their peers in being promoted. White males are promoted at 2 times the rate of Asian males, while white females are promoted at 3 times the rate of Asian females. This disparity has gotten worse over the last 2 decades, and our mentorship program strives to help address this inequality. The 6-month-long program is focused on education and deep engagement with a very, very small mentor family cohort that works together collaboratively to help solve issues for one another. In fact, I was a mentee within the program about 11 years ago, maybe 9 years ago now. And it was my first introduction to Monte Jade. As a reminder, this event is recorded and you will be able to see this event on our website and on YouTube later on. So we'll look forward to seeing you guys there. If you have any questions or Q&A for our speaker, please feel free to put it into the Q&A function. And if you have an upvote or upvote for some of these questions, they'll get bubbled to the top. Please use the chat room for general conversations between attendees. Panelists and myself will most likely not be responding to those while we're conducting this interview. I would like to also thank our sponsors at this current time, namely our virtual series sponsors, Deloitte, Venture Pacific Law, and Silicon Motion, for dedicating their resources to enable us to continue to run our great program. I'd also like to thank our annual sponsors, as you can see here on the right-hand side, that continue to sponsor us on an ongoing basis as well. It's with their support that we're able to run these events on an ongoing basis. And so thank you very much for your ongoing support. At this time, I have the great pleasure of introducing CY. He is the co-founder of Benefits Tomorrow, which since 2011, he is the EVP of the World Financial Group, and he was the former VP of Technology and Operations at IDT. Prior to that, he worked at AMD, and he's been focused on numerous areas of responsibility. So he's worked on new product developments, launching products into mass. He's been doing investments, acquisitions. Product lines include SRAMs, switches, memory buffers, registers, wireless chargers, light and image sensors, etc. And on top of that, he's been staying very involved also on the nonprofit side. He was a board member for Monte Jade West in 2014. He then became chairman of Monte Jade West in 2015 and was then appointed as chairman of Monte Jade Global in 2019. He is also a board member out at ACE since 2018. And they are a Asian Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship organization in Washington, D.C. And he is also a board member and vice chair of the San Francisco chapter of ILF, the International Leadership Foundation in Washington. At this time, I would like to introduce a good friend, CY. How's it going, CY?
I'm doing well. Thank you, David.
I really appreciate. Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate your time and joining us today in our interview series. And I want to kind of start off. Many of our audience members are immigrants, and I know you also came from Asia as well. Can you talk a little bit about your journey and what brought you here originally to the U.S.?
Okay. I originally from Taiwan. Back in the school day, during my era of time, when they graduated, they want to go to America to looking for the advanced degree. So I am just typical one of those kind of person. So after I graduated, finished the mandatory military study, and I joined some tests, TOEFL tests, and then applied to school, and then I came to the state in the 1979.
That's fantastic. And was that challenging for you to move here to the U.S.? Did you come by yourself? Did you have friends or family? How's that experience coming here?
Actually, it's quite amazing. When I think about my what happened back then, it's still pretty amazing to me because I think I don't know anyone. I just apply a school. And then I found out there's a Chinese school association over there. So I talked to the mail, no email, right? Just a handwritten mail and get connected. So I booked the ticket and fly to the state. So all I have is admission from the school. I know one person who is in charge of the Chinese association in that school. By the way, that was in Texas. So I started my journey and then come here by myself. And I only bring the register. That's pretty much I have.
Wow, that's amazing. That's such a big leap and a big challenge to come from somewhere so far and come here. When did you start to really feel like, oh, this is where I belong? And this is actually my home now, right? Because as an immigrant, you don't always feel fully connected.
Correct. Actually, it's and then back when I graduated, when I had my degree, it was 1980. At that time, economics is not very good. And came to the state in California. Basically I graduated from Texas, and then for another looking for a job, and then I got at the time. I started in California, and then after I get married and started to build my family, then I say, oh, okay, this is where I belong to, So I really treat California starting as my home, and grow the family, and also I like the weather here, and of course the innovation and the high-tech environment, and that is very attractive to me as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, it always seems like once you get a family and then you really settle down, that's when you really feel like, oh, this is now home, right? This is where I belong. And I want to kind of jump a little bit to the career side. I know you started off, I think, at AMD earlier on. Is that correct? How did you find AMD? What made you go to AMD? What was the driver there?
Yeah, actually, the first job actually was introduced by a friend's friend, because when back then we really don't know anyone, right? So after I came to the California, so I tried to find some friends. And my wife happened to know someone working in the semiconductor industry, so she referred me, and then that's how that started. So somebody referred me, and I went into the interview and started my engineer career. So I came to the semiconductor industry. It's not I choose to be a semiconductor. Because somehow I found the first job. And then started with semiconductor, and I was very lucky actually, because semiconductor, it is a field at that time just start to booming, just start to grow. So basically, the time I started in A&D at that time is probably the semiconductor the industry started to grow. Yeah,
that's amazing. So, what was that first job? So, what did you start your career as?
I started my career as a process engineer, which is working in the semiconductor wafer fab. Okay? And because I have virtually no experience, so it's like new grad started with a fresh job and start to learn everything from the beginning and learn everything from the people more senior than me, right? So yeah, that's how it started.
And so, like, as you were growing within that career, I think you moved up to like the supervisorial level next, and started overseeing a team. Like, can you take us through some of the challenges that you faced, like working with those types of people, like managing a team?
Sure. Yeah, it is definitely a long journey, and from typical the new grad engineer without any influence or any background. And then I'm very lucky, basically through the different job opportunity, the challenge, like you say, from supervisor, manager, and to become director, and then the VP, and then the group VP, senior VP. So different time and different challenge for sure. Right at the beginning, the challenge I think is more related to the ownership, because at that time, CY as a junior manager, I tried to do everything by myself. I make all detailed decision, and then the creative problem is nobody going to make decisions. So I get called all the time, even after work, and the weekend as well, because people they wait for me to make decisions, because this is a semiconductor wafer fab. And then throughout the experience and the journey and the start to learn, say, okay, we need to empower the employee, give people the authority so people can go ahead and do the job. It's in the same time to train the new people, the new engineer. So that is a big change actually. And then as I get my responsibility more and more, and then I also learned that you have to give your responsibility away in order to get a bigger responsibility. So that makes the big difference there, because every time when I supervise some manager, I always give them some ownership and try to figure out what they want to do, and try to find out who is going to take over my job. And that make that very clear in their review. And also, same thing, my supervisor, they also know what is my successory plan, who is going to take over my job. And then things just happen, when there is a proper arrangement, then that being given more and more responsibility, when there is a position available, usually I will acting for it first, and without the giving up my old position for a period of time. And then when everything goes smooth, then basically, new responsibility, but also the old responsibility. So I think that is very important. Don't afraid people take over your job. That's definitely true.
That's so fascinating, because as an early engineer, you're effectively trained. You're like, oh, you need to do everything in this space. And the theory, though, is like when you're an engineer starting off, is that as you move up, you need to know more. You need to know more. You need to know more. But it's how did you transition to start to let things go? Like how did you start that? And was it successful the first time? What did you change? Like, how did you start transferring?
No, I think the one thing is definitely learn from the hard way, right? Because when I have so many responsibilities, I just cannot take care of myself. That's absolutely true. Because when I supervise my group become bigger and bigger, just for writing the review, if I need to write a 30 review at a very short period of time, that's a lot of challenge. So that time I started to think about, oh, I don't want to write so many review. You know, I have to let other else review, right? So more ownership, and they, you know, eventually when I become VP role, that is to do by as a junior engineer, you know, people, and there's no one can manage all the other VP to manage group in order to have the best efficiency. And that's always a, 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 a way that manager as well. They don't let things slow down. Because a lot of managers, especially some senior manager, they don't want to give up the responsibility. They don't want to let other people do the decision. They problem because this is holding. So whenever I see that, I will, you know, say don't hold on the things, right? You have to make the system of for a big company.
Yeah, I know the whole delegation component is always a really big challenge. But once you empower someone and they realize they can scale much faster, it is very, very freeing, right? To really grow and scale.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, then you found out actually the accomplishment is even bigger because there's so many people working together and the things go in parallel, right? So the company can move very fast. In our industry, you know, semiconductor, time is money. You know, especially when we do the development, also including the initial ramp up, the time. Everybody is trying to fighting with the time and try to get a new product on the market. Try to talk to customer and show them the new product first in order to win the contract and the to be designed in. So the time basically is everything. You know, we basically spend a lot of money to get a new product fastest to the customer, so customer can make it design in.
Right.
So
right.
so that is yeah, general, I think. Yeah.
So I know you moved from AMD to eventually IDT. What made you go to IDT? Like, what was the draw that you wanted to move locations?
Oh, okay. And that's two reasons basically. You know, one is AMD back then, you know, want to relocate manufacturing to. So I said, wow, you know, I just started my family. You know, I just joined AMD less than 2 years at that time. So I really don't want to move yet, right? So I said, well, I need to find another job in California. And then IDT at that time, you know, is a relatively small company, smaller, much smaller, and the much smaller organization. But you know, they basically look and then a check spread and the pre-sale military. So SRAM at that basically they have the highest reputation. So that's what I decided. Okay, I'm going to join the IT, and this not because AMD is not a good company, but because you know there's a challenge in terms of new product.
Yeah, I mean, like it's always nice to go to a smaller organization, right? That's starting off, winning in the market. It's a very, very different experience set. And so when you were there, did you help, like, tell me about the growth path that you were able to help build at IDT?
Oh, okay. Now, when I go to the when I joined IDT, as I say, IDT relatively smaller company, so I got a bigger responsibility because you know when people need to do multi job function, right? So I have opportunity to get in more areas. For example, back in AMD, as a process engineer, I probably only responsible for only one sector, you know, one department of the process technology. For example, like photolithography, okay? And then when I joined the IDT, very short time that I need to find out, say, okay, not only the photolithography, but I also need to know the other process area, for example, like thin film, like etch, so there's within very short time, I need to pick up a lot of different things. I need to do a lot of disposition to help out the wafer fab moving, to move the new product, and also with a good quality. And that is another challenge back then, is quality, because we focus on the quality very much. So that is a very good learning experience. Basically, force myself, without other choice, to dig in it and try to pick up everything I can from the senior people. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like it was a very big transformation in your career, right? So going from a large organization to a smaller one where you got more responsibility, you got to do more things. It sounds like that was the acceleration point of your career.
Absolutely, absolutely. A&D at that time, some people, in the industry for a longer time, they probably remember Jerry Sander was the chairman CEO back then. At that time, the company A&D announced a $1 billion revenue target. And then if people can hit 1 billion, actually we got a lot of bonus. We're going to get a lot of bonus, right? So we hit the first $500 million goal within the target. And then the Jerry Center actually in the San Francisco, the Moscone Center has a very big event to celebrate that. And that was the headline in the newspaper back then, is because he spent so much money to celebrate A&D to make a major milestone. And unfortunately, we didn't make the second one. We didn't make it 1 billion. Yeah. But nevertheless, I decided to leave IDT. Basically, one is the job location. The second is the new product.
Yeah, I mean, so as you were at IDT helping them scale their operations, you were able to build out multiple fabs, scale the operation. But we all know that the semiconductor industry started hitting some issues, and some of the core strategies associated with like semiconductor businesses started to shift. So back when a lot of semiconductor companies started, everyone had their own fabs.
Yeah.
And then the ecosystem started to change. So can you take me through some of the challenges, and like how did you as a company decide we're going to walk away from the fab business, right? Like, and how did that impact? I'd love to like understand that story.
Yeah. I'm very lucky actually to went through the whole time period of the semiconductor industry, from booming to quote unquote outsourcing, okay, for the manufacturing. So the basic problem is the cost, because when we started in the semiconductor industry, because people want to control the new product, and they always referring there, if you don't have a fab, just like a cowboy without a horse. So every fab, every company, Intel, AMD, IBM, you name it, Fairchild, TI, Motorola, everybody wants to have a fab. And that's, we call the IDM, later on we call it IDM fab, right? Called it's almost like internal design, and then you manufacture, okay? So for the integrated device manufacturing, and then come to the point that because semiconductor is cylindrical, it's not stable. The business is up and down, depends on for example, like Christmas time, that's a lot of demand, right? And people want to buy the electronic product. But there's a weak season, slowing time. So when you own a fab, basically there's over cost problem, because the fab may be only loading 30%, 40%, 50%, depends on the product you're selling, whether you have a lot of customer or what is the demand order. So that is a general problem. And then as I become a senior manager, eventually own the operation, when I start to build a fab, I know it costs a lot of money, right? But everybody just thinking about, hey, we build a fab, go with technology, when we do the 0.25, we need to figure out how to 0.25 micron referring to. And then we have to go to the 90 nanometer, and then after 90 nanometer, we have to go to 65 nanometer. So this is a no ending, the past, right? And to the point, early 90s, and then some of the fab, some of the company start to say, well, this is just too much money. not only for keeping out the fab, but also for keep invest for the new technology. And you have to go with the technology in order to have a new product compete in the market. So this is like a never ending. So then, TSMC, UNC, those companies, Charter came up. They have very good story. They basically sell the wafer foundry concept and say, hey, use my foundry fab. You don't need to pay the capital investment. You can design the new product with advanced technology, and then you don't need to keep the fab. So then it started. So basically from building the fab, then starting from the mid 1990 timeframe, 1995 timeframe, basically IDT will start to closing the fab. So unfortunately, I'm in charge of all the manufacturing and the wafer fab. So personally, I have to close 3 different fabs, manufacturing fab in the United States, and then I have to close the assembly fab in Philippines, and also the assembly facility in the Penang as well in Malaysia. The only reason is, the profit margin, gross margin, right? So I think the IDT was able to survive since 1981 company established, and then part of the reason, especially to year 2000, is because IDT basically went through this whole cycle and become fabless. So our gross margin significantly improved, and then even the company eliminate all the manufacturing site, basically move all the manufacturing to offshore to wafer foundry, and but the company financially improved significantly. And then whatever the money that we save, we're able to hire more design people. We're able to hire a new product line from very simple company with 1 or 2, 3 different product line to 7 or 8 different product line, and looking at all different kind of business. So it is a big change for the semiconductor industry for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating, kind of hearing because you're on the inside of this company and essentially driving this transition, and it's always hard, especially if you need to shut down locations. These are people's jobs. There's people's families. You need to you've worked with these people a really long time, and I think a lot of people even right now, we're going through an economic crisis at this current time, and they're having to face the same thing. And so I know a lot of people are concerned about their careers and their jobs, and oftentimes they don't have this control. And I'd love to understand, how did you, talk to these people, and then what advice were you giving them? How should people be prepared for scenarios like this? I'd love to hear your take on this.
Yeah, at the beginning when I closed the first fab, basically as the senior manager, basically I talk to people, basically try to tell the people. I try to move the people from one location to another location, a different fab, as much as I can. But when we start to closing one by one, not only closing one by one, but also in between, we have to call reduction in force, try to downsize the facility, right? So that's a never-ending trouble, I think. Okay. And then also I see all these people basically got to let go and be out of anybody's control. So when a company decide, to go for the profit margin, which unfortunately they have to because the war want company to make money, right? One company to survive. So the objective is different, and then they found out they have to close all the fab and basically become the reduce the overhead. Then we have to execute. And many of my good friends, unfortunately, it doesn't matter, they graduate from grade school, PhD, how much contribution, how good performance. But when this kind of action happen, people have no control. And when I close the first fab, I just think, well, so sorry, it happened, right? But when I close 3 fab and then the facility, the offshore as well, then I start to really think about it. I say, gee, these people, they are working so hard, but they really don't have control on their own destiny. Okay, that really hit me hard. The reason is one of my GM who operate one of the wafer fab in Oregon, and then when we closed the fab, and then I was told one of the actually before we closed the fab, we downsized, and then he got impact, so he basically out of job. So he is well-known people, high reputation in the local area because he in charge with the fab for IDT. So he's highly respected. He has community leader. And then one of the employee work in the I don't remember, it's a Target or some grocery store, and they saw him. So he asked, he said, "Hey, Rich, where are you heading?" In this employee basically said, "Okay, you left IDT. Where you are working right now? Are you working for Intel? Are you working for Maxine, or which company you working?" And this GM, after 6 months out of job, he said, "I'm heading to the next aisle. I'm heading to the next aisle in the grocery shop, the grocery store." That means he haven't learned anywhere, even with his high quality of the job experience. So that's another story. When I heard, I just say, really doesn't matter how high up the level of the job that you have. As long as you're working for somebody else, that people need to control their own destiny, is need to thinking hard in terms of what kind of career they engage and what kind of career they want to spend their time to build and have control. Okay, so if you start working for a company and then you don't really have control, then you need to really think hard and say, okay, how can you change it? How can you change it? How can you increase more leverage of your ability to control your destiny? I think that is very, very important.
Yeah, I think that's a super insightful thing. It's I think a lot of times when individuals, like when people are working in their careers, they just don't think. They just think, I'm always going to have this job. It's always going to be great. I have a lot of good stability. I'm going to be able to stay here for a long time. And then all of a sudden, something like COVID-19 hits, right? Or the semiconductor industry has to change and things have to shift. So, when you say control, what do you mean by control? Like, how does one get more control?
Okay, so when I say control means when you select a job, right? If you just like a 9-to-5 job, you work for somebody else. The truth is you really don't control your job because your job can. It's a pandemic time. I hear one word and I want to share with people. This one word say one job is not a job unless that job is created by yourself. That means you need to be your own boss, right? So if you're not only your own boss, then you better have 2 jobs. When I say 2 jobs, it's not saying you go to work for 2 companies. When I say 2 jobs, is one job you probably work for somebody, but another job you need to work for yourself. So that means you need to spend the time. Don't sit back and say, I have a job, I enjoy my life. I work 9-to-5 or whatever the time is, and that's it. No. If you work for somebody else, I really suggest people need to look and say, okay, what's the opportunity or what is other possibility I can create my own job, own career. Doesn't matter you have partner together to start up a company, have some innovation, some idea, you work somebody. That could be the good point, right? The good point is also, I think for young people really need to know, don't fight the war by yourself. You need to find some good friends, some partner, and have teamwork. Okay, because when you think about to start up a company or to fulfill a dream, it's very difficult to done by one person by yourself alone. Okay. I heard many stories. People do the startup company, and they all stand for they have good fund. Because sometimes people work where or herself and don't know one location. But when they start to work with some other people, and then the okay, do I still have the Zoom?
Yeah, your internet's a little bit choppy, but I'm getting it every so often.
Okay.
Keep going. It's okay.
Okay.
We can't control the internet.
So I always hear the comment and say, gee, you know, since I met this person and then he knows something, and then suddenly the company like a change luck or something, and all the problems start to gradually going away. So this is something unpredictable, you know, something never expected, but it happened. So I think the young people they need to really learn how to do the teamwork, how to bring more chance in terms of the success.
Yeah, I think that's great comment and great insight, because no company is built by just one person. Even like Elon Musk, he has a whole team to support and drive his business, right? And I'm actually curious. I mean, you've founded other companies before. You're a co-founder for some other businesses. You've been involved in many startups, and you've been able to build and harness and control the resources of many people to get things done. Like, and I was on the board when you were chairman of Monte Jade, and I saw you move mountains, right? Like, that was pretty amazing. So I'm very curious, like, how do you find people? How do you identify talent? Like, I mean, this is a little different question, because where do you get your resources, and how do you motivate people?
Well, sometimes the people are introduced by other friends, right? So the one thing is people need to outgoing, and try to meet more people, because a lot of time it's not someone you know directly, but it's actually referred by somebody else and say, hey, some person, you know, and then he is what kind of expertise, for example, and then you might say, well, you know, just go and know this person, you know, because you choose a partner is not like you meet one time and then you say, oh, this is my partner, you know, I'm going to work together with him and to build a new company. I don't think it happened like that way. I think most of the case is actually you know the people for a while, and then say, hey, you know, we have the same dream to work together. And so, just like you say, it is not easy to select the people or how to pick the people. But definitely, the association like Monte Jade, for example, when people join Monte Jade, if they involve deeply and then become active, and they have more chance to know more people. They have more chance to know all kind of industry and know what kind of people over there, and then what kind of talent. So when you have an idea, or even if people has an idea, and they will look for you and then say, hey, many times people come to me and say, CY, I have this idea, what do you think? And then is this something you have interest, or do you want to become part of it? Do you want to invest? And then do you want to be help give us advice? You know, if I don't join Monte Jade, you know, I won't have this kind of opportunity. So I think the thing is you have to take action. You have to become active and then go out and meet people, and also try to let people know you. Okay, and people know you, and people say, okay, this is a person, and then what is the expertise, or what is your interest? What is your interest? Not necessarily expertise. I think those are very important.
That's fantastic. I mean, yeah, I think networking, meeting other people, building that community is super important. And I know you've been a very big community leader and you're involved in so many nonprofits. How did you get involved in like being so active in the community? Because oftentimes when I look at I think one of the big issues within in the Asian community is we're not actually active enough, right? I think we need to get more people out there. So what motivated you to become so active in all of these nonprofits? I know you're also very big in like influencing in Washington, D.C. as well. So, what drove you to do all these things?
Well, at the beginning, is basically influenced by friends, for sure. Because when I look some of these senior people in the Chinese American in a way, I'm looking at their career, and then I found out is when people reach certain career, they always try to contribute back to the society. Okay. So these senior people always is the leader of the community, and they try to help out the community in many different ways, many different directions. Then I found out, say, wow, yeah, if I can do something like that, that would be great. So that's how that started. Especially when I start to closing down the manufacturing. Tell you the truth is actually and the reason because in the way, but the things become outsourcing, and actually there's a more free time for myself. So that's how I decided to engage, especially when I have more time in the California instead of travel, to all different facility location. For example, I usually have to go to the Philippines, Manila, because we have facility over there. I have to go to Malaysia, to Penang, because we have facility there. I have to go to Oregon because we have wafer fab over there. So I have to travel all these different locations. I have to go to Singapore because we have a testing facility there, right? So when we closing down those facilities, basically, I don't need to travel so much for the facility, and I only need to travel to meet the supplier of the foundry of the assembly the assembly side or the wafer side, So I have time, so I start to thinking about creating my foundation, and especially the able to use the foundation to do some donation. The reason is because I have been helping out the students in the past, just giving out some scholarship. But with the foundation, it's much easy to giving out the scholarship or find some young talented student and to give them some recognition, right? So that's how it started originally. And then when the foundation go for a few years, and then actually from the working side, okay, from the my company, actually sometimes I feel that there's always competition inside the company in a way, and I am Chinese, right, Chinese American, and then always some challenge from the other senior VP, for example, and maybe they want to have a power struggle, or they want to have more responsibility, so that way, try to figure out, what kind of I have, right? And they always think that the Chinese may lead. How can I lead the vocation? Different kind of the people, and then I say, okay, are going to join more of the hands-free organization. That's how I started the International Leadership Foundation. And then this organization basically provide the scholarship students to work with the government, commercial department, or the legal department, and the
I think we just lost CY. Let me see if we can get him back. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Hey, CY, can you hear us? I think we lost your audio.
All right, I did that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. There you go.
Okay, great. So we how I engage with the some of the organization, especially this internet connection is unstable.
Yeah, I think your internet.
Okay.
Maybe CY. Maybe let's turn the video off, and then maybe we'll get just better audio. Let's try that.
Video off. Okay. How's that? You are mute.
Yeah. We're just seeing your wife now on your photo. We're now going to celebrate your wife, an important partner in your marriage. Sorry about that. Yeah. So can you talk more about your nonprofit? You said you donate and you provide a lot of support in terms of sponsoring younger rising leaders. What else are you doing? I know you're staying relatively involved in also Asian leadership. I think it's a really passionate topic for you that you're working on as well.
Yeah. One of the problems, I think, if you want to make sure there is no discrimination, if you want to make sure that everybody is treated equally, especially minority, and then you have to have a voice driven by the policymaker. In reality, the Chinese American is still not enough to engage in the government policy making side, right? Even we have the transportation department. Right now is Yuan Chao. You can find out she actually speaks for the minority, right? She's looking at the enrollment of the Harvard school, for example, whether it's fair to treat all these minority. That's a good example. And basically there's just not enough the Chinese American to work in the government. Okay, so if we can bring the student to Washington D.C. and work somewhere in China to understand how the government work, to become the assistant of the senator, the congressman, or the minister, then when that number keep increasing year after year, I think the young people, they have a chance to know better how the government, how the policy happen, and then they can actually try to become become part of it when they grow up, when they become, because they understand how that work. Like myself, I came to the state. Basically, I don't really know, how to make a special request happen in the government, right? And then it actually goes through many lobbying process to make anything happen, right? So that's the reason I think is why I want to engage those kind of organization. And then also the last 2 years, I joined the Asian and the Pacific Island Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C. And same thing. And that organization is actually provide the recommendation, suggestion to the government to make the policy, okay, to take care of the small business owners, okay. And there's a lot of opportunity for the minority as well because of the vocal of the suggestion, the voice, right? So the minority, they can get information, what kind of opportunity is available. And for sure, those will help out the minority people, especially the future, the younger people as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think engaging in civil service and just being engaged in the political process is incredibly important. And to be honest, even myself, like and I'm still, like pretty far removed from a politics standpoint, but I think it is definitely for me being engaged in an organization like Monte Jade, meeting a lot of like-minded people, where I am, like getting more involved now in like areas that just like it's important to understand, right? There's, Asians are not being promoted as fast as Caucasians, right? We have some partnerships with another group called Ascend, and one of their advisory board members, Buck G, he's very actively involved in working with the API caucus, making sure that Asians are very well represented in bills. For example, there's, I think, a bill, I don't remember what it is right now, but it was just moving through the California Assembly, and it was requiring that, every public board requires a minimum, I think is 2 minority board members. But the problem is when this bill was first introduced, it actually excluded Asians from the definition of minority.
Amazing.
So they excluded it. And why? Because, there's this, like this perception that Asians are doing very well, so they don't need help. And I think we as a community, we need to be careful of that, right?
Yeah.
And
absolutely, because that create unequal, that nation, Asia is doing, it's always distribution. Well, right? I think this they try to basically eliminate the Asian from this kind of the definition. That's a big trouble.
Yeah, and like I said, like I'm relatively new to like just understanding the dynamics of these ecosystems, but it's really interesting because in politics it's all about coalition building, right? It's how do you get people that may not be the exact same as you, but they can support a mutually similar cause, and thereby you both benefit from it. And I think it's important, right? Because I mean, you talked about this, about like team building, finding other people. It's not just yourself. You have to find other partners to work together to maybe drive a larger cause and a larger impact within our community. Hey, CY, you there?
Correct. Life is actually is a lot of challenge, right? Even the very wealthy people are the people working a lot of the responsibility, authority in the past. Throughout the life, that can change. People can, some people, very wealthy people, and then they can be hit very bad. For example, like this COVID-19. COVID-19 hit a lot of companies. A lot of small business owners, they are in trouble. So at a normal, there is, the big channel, think about it, how much damage excludes all the Asian people from this definition, and then if there's two people, in the executive or in the board, need to be the so-called the minority, then Asian should be included, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're kind of nearing the end. I mean, do you have any comments or maybe final words for our community here? I know you've been very influential in a lot of different areas of the community, but any like takeaways for our community that you would like them to just really like reflect upon?
Yeah, just these many people, the young people, I think, right? People in the career. I think the first is don't afraid. That's the first one. The second one is tell people what you will be. I think people need to know what is your dream and what is your desire. So when they plan their the promotion or the organization, they can think about it. Myself actually, couple times in the past, my boss actually came to me and said, CY, what do you want to be? Because I'm planning for the organization and you never tell me what you want to be, right? And there's a position opening. So I think people need to speak up, okay? Let the supervisor know what is your intention. The third thing I think is, like I said, right, is go out and join the organization to let people know about you, okay, and join and work as team. And that's very important. And then number 4, and which is my personal experience as well, is don't afraid to touch other people's territory, okay? Because sometimes in the job environment, some people say this is mine, don't touch it. That is territory I'm referring to, right? But for senior management, especially right now, when I look at, I don't like this kind of territory concept. I always try to break that. And then in the past, part of the reason I think I'm able to get a lot of opportunity is because I broke those kind of territory. Because I say, as a team, we want to be successful. So if I see an area which is not perform well, the goal cannot achieve, I always just step in and say what needs to be done and make it happen and drive to make it happen. Because I think most companies do, all the group get some review basically based on a certain goal. If the goal happens, then everybody get that point, okay? And then, for example, if there is a 5 goal, and there is a 4 is so-called group goal. Then if a group goal didn't meet, then any one of this group cannot make that bonus or merit, right? So people like me because I always say their review. Because I will go in and say everything which is impact the company goal. For example, like we have 5 goals need to be accomplished, and then there is a 4 goal, shaky, not necessarily make it happen. They are stepping and make it happen. And then eventually people say, Steve, I like you to step in, even this is not your territory. So I think the people need to understand, and then don't afraid to step into other territory as long as your motivation is pure. Your motivation is I just want to make the company successful. So those are basically my suggestion. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a fantastic takeaway, and I think it's a really important focus on, speaking up. Make sure you're heard, but make sure when you are heard and you are working together as a team that you're driving together as a community with the right intent, because that's very important. Because if you're bringing everyone together, that's leadership, and I love that takeaway. At this time, I want to open up to the audience. Is there anyone with questions for CY here? Feel free to raise your hand or type it in to the chat box area, and we'll let you guys speak. Anyone with questions? Well, while we give them some time to think about some questions, CY, let me ask you a question about, you've been involved in the semiconductor space for a pretty long time. Do you see any interesting investment opportunities, or what do you think the next trend for the semiconductor space is going to look like? And what do you think about Intel potentially giving up their fab?
That's a tough question, but it's a good one as well, right? I think the everybody know the one thing is the security is a hot topic. Security, because right now in this so-called the control, the security control, and make sure the privacy, the privacy won't be steal by somebody else, right? The same as a company. The company facing the problem is also a lot of innovation, a lot of the new development. They really don't want to let their competitor know. So I think the security is one area which is be very critical. And then recently, all these news, how the president tried to kill the this social media even if you want to put in control, because of privacy. So I think that area is continual an area to be important. The second area is the automation. Okay, the automation. The automation is not just the car. It's not just the Tesla automotive. The automation in terms of robotic, is going to be huge growth, I think, in the next 10 years. Because in the booming right now, in the next 10 years, a lot of the baby boomer getting old and need more care, right? And the truth is the labor is too expensive. People cannot afford it to hire someone to take care of them. And unfortunately, the social system, the welfare system is not complete in the US. Same as a European country. Okay? So the robot to do the easy housework, to take care of people, to take orders, and do simple. I think that's going to be a big market and a high demand as well. So I think that area will be continue to be strong. Okay, and then the last area is the still go back to the speed of the data and the data storage. That's going to continue to be demanded, right? Because as the exponential growth right now in the technology, it's not just like it used to be, it grows slowly each year. Right now, each year is growing exponentially because the fundamental is there already, right? The fundamental to make the things happen is there. So it's relying on the people with the innovation and put things together to make it happen. Okay? So I think that area is going to continue to grow. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And any comments on Intel leaving the fab space?
Yeah, and the Intel stock dropped significantly because of their delay. But this is personally, okay, I don't speak for anyone, but just for myself, disclaimer, I think the competition is not a short period of time. The competition is always a long period of time. And Intel financially, I think financially they still able to compete in the long run. Okay, and I personally don't think they will give up the wafer manufacturing. Part of the reason is just think about it. The policy from the U.S. government policy side. 10 years ago, I talked to some congressman, senator. I said, a lot of companies closing down the wafer fab. All the supporting the industry is going away at the same time. So why is a congressman and senator, why you don't vocal in the White House and make something happen? And nothing happened, right? They say, well, they did a study the US don't have enough labor to support in the long run. Okay. Second, this is industry basically is environmental issue. They don't like it. You know, it's like a sunset industry. That's how they do in the past, right? Let's talk about Intel. Same thing. I think that Intel today, Trump want all these high tech basically bring the factory back, right? He don't want to see the, basically an important company like Intel give up the manufacturing, because that would be totally reverse than what he wants. So if Intel want to close the fab, for example, I think government say, no, why you want to do that? We support you. You stay the manufacturing, keep the manufacturing, because we want somebody to compete with TSMC, right? So Intel is probably the only company left in the United States, with advanced wafer manufacturing technology. And even their CPU in the long run, they say, well, they are not going to use Intel CPU, unfortunately, right? But Intel have to figure out. Intel has been trying to do foundry as well, by themselves. And there are some companies, they use Intel facility. And possibility maybe, they will try to become a bigger foundry and compete to TSMC. And that is always a possibility. Yeah.
Sure. Great. Thank you for the insight. That's amazing. We have a question that's actually related from Nana. And she asks, how do you think the pandemic is going to change our semiconductor ecosystem?
For the ecosystem, I think people are going to use it in terms of how we communicate right now. Nana probably has more insight than me, right? Because Nana is personally involved in the manufacturing side, right, and the customer.
Well, I think she's trying to refer more towards like how has the pandemic with like COVID-19, like how is that impacting, and then maybe like some commentary on maybe the supply chain side, like things like Huawei issue, like how do you think this will play out over the long duration?
I can only say is a lot of people found out this how powerful is the Zoom meeting, right? So I think all the supply chain, as far as I know, if I look at the earnings report since the pandemic, not only the U.S. industry, but also the supplier industry or the Asian side. A lot of companies actually make more money. I don't know how they did it, right? But it happened. I mean, the U.S. actually, a lot of companies, they announce the earnings, actually the bigger revenue than before. I don't know, maybe the thinking people used to be is they cut down the inventory, they control very tight, because they don't want to have the overstock. But right now, people are afraid they cannot get supply. So they actually, some company I heard, they actually buy more because they want to make sure. I think some of these products, like Huawei, for example, because they say will be shut down by US government. So they actually, for that. But what revenue is revenue. It doesn't matter how they come from, because next month maybe the topic business. So that's always unpredictable, some fact. So sooner, for example.
Hello, CY, can you hear us?
Private industry, airlines, I think those, yes. Can you hear me? I think those is very hard to be, those industry, unfortunately, like cruise, like all this industry, I take years to cover. But for the actually side, I think it's going to cover pretty soon. I hardly can say, I always give that Tesla basically they don't close the factory with the local government, the county, and say they want to go back to work, right? And they win. even the Trump would support and say, no, actually can take themselves, they didn't work, right? So I don't know. Eventually, a big dramatic impact yet. Okay, and I think you probably is 5 so I don't think they will to make things happen, and I think they're going to drive. So I think go further and actually, they have working on projects called no worker factory. Basically, the no light. They call it no light, right? No light industry, the factory. Basically, they don't need to turn on the light because there are very few people working in the factory, and the everything is automation. So I think that's going to be more and more, especially using more robot to and people need to make the control. It's all sitting in the control room, maybe far away from the factory, and they can virtual using the image and control everything happen.
Great. That was a really insightful kind of vision of what's going to look like, what things are going to look like in the future. We had one more question from Dave, and his question is around your kind of like you had 4 takeaways at the very end of your interview, and number 4 was like you should step in and be more proactive and get involved in other areas. And he's asking, how do you avoid confusion with roles and responsibilities when you start to step into other people's areas?
Okay, that is actually the end result, because there's always conflict. There's always conflict, right? But I working in the work environment, so I am very lucky, right? Because I have a conflict in terms of stepping into the other people's area. Yes, some people may be not happy, but all the other people working for that manager are very happy because they see a light. How can they get the knowledge? So I'm facing that conflict. I think that's my answer. And then I have a small story here related to that as well. And then when I was a young engineer, and then everybody talking about Japan. How good is Japan's product quality? They're using the quality circle, a small quality group circle. Okay, small quality circle. Small, and then we set up the goal saying, but if we don't know, basically that is just a number. Say you need to control the quality to that. So I set up the goal. I say I need to be better than 1.33. And then at that time, our CDK may be only 0.5. A lot of they say, CY, how can you set up a goal like this? Nobody can achieve. So, well, look at all the documentation, published paper. It need to be 1.33, otherwise it's without control. It's not a good quality. And we have to set minimum. So even people not happy, they complain, but I say that's the goal as a me. And my boss actually come back to me after 1 year. While you to set up that goal, you have because of the at that time. But he said that making you a different a different manager. So that's very basically shows you. And back then, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Sorry about that. It's
No
a little,
problem.
it's a little choppy on your side, so it's kind of a little
Right.
hard to hear you.
But it's okay though. I mean, you want me to repeat or?
No, it's okay. I think it's I think just there's like an internet connection issue, and so I think we'll check the recording afterwards, and then we'll see how we can clean it up.
Okay. I saw a question about Armand. That's the same question that you referred to, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, CY, thank you so much for spending your time on a Saturday to join us on the Monte Jade board-to-board interview series. I'm really hoping that this COVID issue ends soon, so we can actually see each other in person and have a dinner. Where I haven't seen you for a very, very, very long time, so I'm really looking forward. I'm really looking forward. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your ongoing support.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
With that, I'm going to wrap up with a little bit of logistics. And so bear with me as I wrap up here. So thank you, CY. Just as a reminder, we have a lot of events coming down in the rest of the quarter and then also going into Q4 as well. We have coming up is Thinking Like a Hiring Manager, which is going to be our 4th series in our hiring manager panel. We then have a panel with Deloitte and ASE talking about how COVID-19 is reshaping the world $10 billion at a time. And so that'll be a fun one to see how these large, great companies perceive the future of supply chains and technology in the future. They'll be followed by a board-to-board interview series with Peter Chu, and then we're going to have a kickoff into our mentorship program. So if you're interested in other programs or anything else, please stick by and check our website for the most updated event calendar. And we look forward to seeing you at future events as well. And lastly, I want to thank our sponsors, Deloitte, Venture Pacific Law, and Silicon Motion for sponsoring our virtual series. We continue to be blessed by a bunch of great supporters, and we continue to put on these programs just for our community. And we thank you guys all very much. Have a great weekend. And CY, thank you so much for coming out and supporting us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you guys. Thank you.
Bye.